All right. Thank you, Dr. Conteh. Thank you for being here again this Sunday. We want to thank everybody out there, all Gambians, and all those who are watching us and who will be watching us. Dr. Conteh, today we want to talk about briefly the poverty report on the Gambia. We did talk about this last week or a couple of weeks ago, but we want to revisit it again because there is new contradictory information about the poverty rate in the Gambia. So we want to discuss that briefly. We will also look at the postponed protests by the Coalition for Progressive Gambians. That was scheduled for last Friday. It did not happen. We will look at that, what happened, what concessions were made with the government that prompted the protest to be suspended or canceled. So we will look at that, what happened uh, in that situation. We will also, in regards to that, we will look at the president's meeting with the local government officials, authorities, local government authorities, basically the chiefs. I think some alcalos were also part of it, but so the president had a meeting with the local government authorities concerning the security situation in the country. We will talk about all of that. But first, Doctor, we want to look at the poverty report. A couple of weeks ago, we did bring this issue up because there was an IMF report in the Gambia that talked about the poverty rate being at 13%. And we expressed our skepticism about this, the validity or the accuracy of this report. We did argue that the IMF probably were relying on Gambian government data. As we know, a lot of their reports are usually informed by the government's own data, which, in many cases are not representative of the actual situation on the ground. The government reports are typically uh, tilted to reflect the government in favor, in good light, right? So that's what we suspected may have happened. But nonetheless, there's a new report by a group that is called Poverty and Gender Assessment. And they have a report that put the poverty rate in the country at 53.4%. This is more than half of the country. So, Doctor, half of the country, more than half of the Gambian population is below the poverty line. So that is quite incredible. That's a very damning report about the economic situation. We know the economy of the Gambia has been, struggling for quite a long time. But this report has bolstered that argument that the Gambia is doing very, very poorly in terms of the economy, in terms of the welfare of our people. So, and again, the blame was put on the COVID-19 and the Russia-Ukraine war and all that stuff. But again, what we fail to talk about is what the Gambia has not done or has failed to do internally um, um, based on our domestic policies to be able to provide for people, um, improve their welfare. Many countries have been affected by both international global incidents, right? COVID-19 and the war in between Russia and Ukraine. But many countries have done, uh, they have taken domestic steps to mitigate or even avoid, a lot of the suffering that could have come on their people's way. So we need to ask ourselves, what has Gambia done, and what has Gambia failed to do to protect its people, right? And if you look at the history of the poverty rate in the Gambia, the same report, and this is published in the Point newspaper. That was my main source because I read that report. Um, in the report, it is also stated that in 2015, just before this government came to power, the poverty rate was at 49%, roughly 49%, I think 48.6%. And so by 2019, the poverty rate declined slightly to just about 46%, right? So from 49 to 46, declined by 3%. That is quite significant, but still very high. So the poverty rate in the Gambia has hovered around 50% for quite some time, right? And one could surmise that the reduction in poverty between 2015 and 2019 was probably due to the democratic change in the Gambia, right? And the influx of funds from abroad to help the young democracy, right? So we suspected that may have helped the economy. A lot of money was distributed to the people. There were a lot of resources to go around helping our people because of the international goodwill that we enjoyed shortly after the change of government, right? But that has quickly reversed. We've seen a big hike again in the rate of poverty in the Gambia. And just today, before we came on air, Doctor, I was listening to the conference by DOI, PDOIS, where Halifa and Shidia were both speaking. Shidia was the chair, and Halifa was the major speaker on the policy that DOI aspires to introduce or carry out in the Gambia. And these are quite revolutionary, in my view. They are not quite new to some of us who have been supporters and followers of DOI for all these years. We share these values, we share these strategies to transform the Gambia's economy, build it from the ground up, right? It touches on some of these major issues that are confronting the Gambia and that are impacting the poverty rate in the Gambia. The reports have indicated that poverty is still largely a rural phenomenon in the Gambia. Most of the poor percentage-wise, 7 out of 10 residents of rural residents in the Gambia are below the poverty line. That's 70%. That is incredible, Doctor. And in the rural areas, we have a rate of 30% of urban dwellers are below the poverty. Even that is incredibly high. 30% in the urban areas and 70% in the rural areas. But again, the report indicated that, Doctor, the vast majority of the poor, by number, population-wise, are in the urban areas. Of course, this makes sense because most of Gambia live in the urban area. They are the population centers, right? Even with the 30% poverty rate in the Gambia, that constitutes a bigger population than the 70% in the urban areas, right? So there's a lot of urban poverty in the Gambia. And the report cited the southwestern side of the Gambia, particularly Brikama, a major population center. Brikama is quite well populated. Brikama is quite still very rural, in my view, in character. It has a lot of rural character to it, but it's very urban. It's well populated, right? It's a major population center. So the report cited that poverty in Brikama is particularly very high as representative of southwestern Gambia, right? So, Doctor, this is a major issue. I don't know if the government needs to. I don't know how the government will deal with this contradictory information. I think we need to be honest to ourselves and use accurate information that reflects the true condition of our people so that we can address these issues. If we don't have accurate information. We don't start with accurate information to deal with these issues. There's no way we are going to be able to solve these problems, right? So that's the major thing today, Doctor. I don't know if you have anything to add on this, but the floor is yours, Doctor.
Well, thank you very much. And again, we are back on Saturday, Sunday to discuss issues that are important for our country. So, the poverty rate. What concerns me is that the prior report and the current report, they are inconsistent. And I do believe that the current report probably is more reliable. But it seems like we continue to blame the COVID and then the Ukraine war. But we cannot address these problems that we have. I bet if you do a survey from village to village, you will notice that this past rainy season, very few people went to the land farm to do anything there. So we continue to rely on imported goods, and that has contributed to further devaluation of the Gambian dalasi. And we have land out there that people have fenced, even in the urban area, that can be used for horticulture. And we also need to change our diet because rice is not the only edible stuff to eat. But uh, this report is very damning, and we cannot rely on external sources. But what I don't even understand, I was just talking to a friend about. I said, why do we have to import oil? I'm going to digress a little bit from there. Because they have this Medina oil manufactured in India, I believe Pakistan, Turkey. And I asked, how are we assured, that oil is good to eat, is good to cook? And can anyone tell me whether they've seen that type of oil being sold in the markets in India? So these are things that we need to do that. But what can we do as diasporans to decrease the poverty rate in our country? I think we have more of a tool than the rest of the society if only government will engage us by giving us some form of credit. And if we can do that, we can probably decrease the level of poverty in our country. But we also have to be true to ourselves that we have this type of laziness in our country where you go to any, even in the urban area, people sit down. No one wants to go and learn a trade. So if you can send $100 to a family member now, the new rate is 57. So if they can get $5,700 a month, you think they're going to work? We also need to try to empower the youth. I think that will decrease the poverty rate. And if we do that, maybe we can solve the problem. But this 53% poverty rate is alarming. And I think we all should put hands on the deck and see what we can do to solve our country's problems, particularly our poverty rate. If you charge someone even $100 is to send a child to school, they don't have the money. But yes, still, this is something that all of us have to come collectively to solve the problem. This is not a political issue, it's a group issue, and we need to find solutions. So, most of the people who have family members in diaspora, they are lucky. So, in the Gambia, most likely, most families can only have 1 square meal a day. What I'm very more concerned about is the young kids who are going to school because a hungry stomach cannot think, cannot do anything much more to study to go, during school hours or to even concentrate. So we urge the government to come and have open dialogue on this hunger. The president's meeting was the local government officials. What was the purpose? Because right now the focus should be we talk about poverty and we talk about deforestation in our country, particularly when we had a last storm that killed quite a few people and destroyed property. It's going to be the same thing over and over again. Promises given, but they're never fulfilled. So I hope the president can change course instead of having to just meet with them. Meeting with them for what? Uh, I don't know. Because we have more pressing issues, and I hope the president also can address. I know that the Gambia is not the only country that's been impacted with the sudden appreciation of the dollar, but the government has not even come up with any policy whatsoever to counter it. So we will continue to be in poverty, and for some of the Gambians back home who have family members can now are better off. I heard, that if you buy a bag of rice, if you're gonna bring it inside your house, you wait until everybody goes to sleep. So, which means that you cannot buy a bag of rice during the day and take it home. A gentleman told me that he doesn't buy; he only buy cups of rice because a bag of rice, if he buys it, it doesn't stay long. So, what can we do? I don't know. Uh, the president should move forward with some policies that can solve these problems. But just meeting with local government officials, in my view, is not going to solve our short term or even long term needs. And he needs to also make sure that the land tenure system is put in place, whereby localities, particularly in Combo, yeah, because if you take land from a poor farmer, you are actually increasing their poverty rate, and that actually has correlation with the statistics that they have. But I do believe that poverty rate in terms of the urban area is higher. But I don't understand how Brikama can have more poverty than other administrative areas. I just don't get it. And where is that from? I wish we could know. But this poverty rate is actually disturbing, and I think it's all our responsibility to join together to do some form of reduction in the poverty rate. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Doctor. Very well said. Yes, I think probably Brikama, the reason poverty is higher in the Brikama region, Brikama area, uh, which is largely called West Coast, right, is probably due to the fact that um, many poor residents in KMC area, particularly, have found themselves pushed out towards West Coast because it might be relatively cheaper there to reside there. But again, this area is an area that is employment possibilities are very gleam there compared to KNC area. So this different forces, uh, uh, poverty in KMC pushing the most vulnerable towards West Coast in search of cheaper residents, and also the lack of employment opportunities in generally in West Coast as compared to KMC and Banjul. Maybe some drivers of increasing uh, poverty in West Coast. That's a possibility. I think one needs to closely study this to be able to tell exactly. But I strongly suspect some of those forces may be the cause. Um, so Brikama and West Coast is pretty much turning into the slums of KMC and Banjul. So that may be a possibility. And Doctor, I think you touched on what the government is doing to address these issues. I think the government strategy right now looks like it is more about subsidizing imports into the country. So the government has taken up a new strategy. You remember the government applied to the National Assembly to exempt government contracts from PURA regulations, right? And the reason now it's becoming clear why the government did that. What they are doing now is they are actually contracting with select business people to import some of these food materials, food products into the country with subsidies, subsidizing them to bring these products into the country so they can sell it at a cheaper price, thereby circumventing other business people, private people, from bringing those foodstuffs and selling them at a higher price. So the government is probably, that is their strategy now. And Barrow is saying that that's what they did basically to be able to bring the prices of is it a bag of rice or a bag of sugar from 2300 to 1600 now.
But does that
So
make any sense?
yeah, no, it doesn't. And he said they're going to use the same strategy to bring the price of oil also. So it really doesn't make sense. Basically, what it is going to create, and this is already happening, and it's going to continue to happen. Government is continuing to spend more money on subsidies, thereby depleting our reserves, because they are all the subsidies they're giving, they are dipping into our reserves, right?
But what reserves do we have?
Well, I think they said it has the size of the reserve has declined now from 8 months to about 5 months.
You mean even the currency,
Huh?
the foreign currency reserves?
Yes, because that's basically what they're dipping into to
But
subsidize imports of this basic stuff into the country. And this goes back to what Halifa was talking about today, and I hope all Gambians were listening. The Gambia government, instead of subsidizing production in the country, that will create these products in our country and also provide employment to our teeming young people, teeming unemployed young people. They are subsidizing imports, which is even undermining our long-term development goals, right? So, so Halifa talked about, you know, um, uh, welfare in production versus welfare in consumption, right? So what we are doing, and he talked about even buying tons of rice and sugar and distributing it to the people, for free. Well, this may have political value, but it is not very valuable in the long-term economic growth of our country, economic development of our country. You probably sometimes be better off, you know, providing welfare in the productive sector, you know, give tax breaks, other incentives to business people to produce these things, not to import, to produce in our country, right? Creating jobs for our people, producing products that our people consume and our people need, right? This is the long-term um, objective that will develop our country, you know, strengthen our economy, right? But no, we're doing the very opposite, you know. So it is just, I don't know, man. Is we continue to shoot ourselves in the foot, you know. So that is the dilemma in the Gambia. Doctor, any final word on this?
Oh no.
All right, so let's look briefly. We're going to have a pretty short session. Let's look briefly at the president and the um, and the coalition for progressive Gambians. The impasse, right? It's this has been brewing up for some time. The group that called themselves the Coalition of Progressive Gambians made an announcement back in July that they are going to have a major protest in the country on November 11th. November 11th is a date in the Gambia that has become representative of a major uh, a major incident in the country, right? We remember when an alleged counter coup against the AFPRC regime occurred in November 11, 1994, right? And where a lot of bloodshed occurred. So this may have brought those events afresh in many minds of Gambians' minds, right? But nonetheless, the government had decided to engage the group, the Coalition of Progressive Gambians, and there were meetings that involved security officials from I think, the police, the NIA, and the military were involved also, I understand, and some representatives of the government, particularly from the Ministry of Interior. And I think these negotiations were led by the Supreme Islamic Council. Their president was there, at least. So they come to some agreement that the protests will be suspended while the government is given time to address some of the demands by the group, by the Coalition of Progressive Gambians. Um, so the Coalition of Progressive Gambians came up with a long list of demands, among which the issue of corruption needs to be dealt with. The issue of the draft constitution needs to be dealt with. They wanted the draft to be brought back to the National Assembly. Good luck with that. They wanted the report of the what was the report? There was, I think, there was a investigation that was done, and the report is still not revealed to the Gambian people. They wanted the government to release that report. So they have a long list, but at the end of the day, Doctor, I think the coalition of the progressive Gambians, I don't know how progressive they are. I don't know any member of these people. Certainly, I don't know any of them prominent enough for me to know. I don't know the quality of the people in this group. Um, Based on the people who represented them on the media, speaking on their behalf, um, I don't have a very um, high expectation of this group. I wasn't seeing the quality of people that I would have expected in a group that called itself a coalition of progressive Gambians. But nonetheless, this is a group that decided to confront the government on these issues, which are really important issues in the Gambia. I don't know how valid their arguments are. The demand to bring back the draft is very much fanciful to me, because that is not um, directly in the hands of the president. and I don't think he can directly do much about that. The draft went to the National Assembly and it was torn down. It was rejected through a constitutional process. There's nothing illegal about that. The National Assembly members made their decision on the draft, and they made a legitimate decision. It may be a wrong decision that Gambian people did not want, a wrong outcome, but it went through a constitutional process, and that process was legal and legitimate, and the draft is thrown out. When we put the draft, we knew that the draft has to go through a process, and that process has two outcomes. We can have either of them. The draft could pass or it could fail, right? We all knew that. It is legitimate that the draft failed, right? It may not be the outcome we wanted, but that's what happened. Because, to tell the truth, Dr. Conteh, the draft contains clauses that a significant number of Gambians did not like, right? So there are a lot of good things in it. I particularly have problems with some parts of the draft. And I would have loved those to be corrected or reviewed or revised. And so I would have loved the National Assembly to negotiate, do compromise, do a give and take, and come to a consensus or some agreement on what should be in that draft and what should be removed, right? But that did not happen. They did not negotiate. They did not. And I think this partly is also the lack of the negotiative skills or the leadership skills of many of our National Assembly members, right? But that's what happened, and I don't think we are going to have the draft as it is right now be brought back to the National Assembly. Good luck with that. The issue of corruption, they said the anti-corruption bill at the National Assembly needs to be dealt with. I agree, totally agree with that. We need to pass that anti-corruption bill. But I strongly believe that, Dr. Conteh, we don't just have to wait for that. The Gambia has laws today that can deal with corruption. We are just unwilling to deal with corruption. There is the economic crime law in the Gambia, right? The president, if he's willing to tackle corruption, he can use those laws. Gambia used them. He can use those laws and deal with corruption. He can do an executive order or even table a bill at the National Assembly that will amend that anti-corruption bill and put corruption issue right in the hands of the NIA to deal with it. The NIA should have investigative powers, where corruption is involved, and be able to bring charges against people who have committed corruption, right? So I think that anti-corruption bill is good enough to deal with the issue of corruption, frankly speaking. But there's no political will to deal with this issue. So by and large, I strongly think the Gambia government has basically outsmarted these people who call themselves the Coalition of Progressive Gambians. They have been outsmarted by President Barrow and his team. And because I think what the journalists failed to ask them is, they should ask them, what did they get out of this negotiation? They basically came out of this negotiation with nothing. They were not given anything. All that the government told them is to give them time. Ask them to suspend their protests and give them time, because the Interior Minister was out of the country and some other minister was out of the country. So until they come back, they should be given time to deal with this issue. That's it. And already some of their members are resigning from the group. So basically the group is going to, I don't really even see the future of them. They have been basically outsmarted. And so I don't know, man. So that's my view on that. And the president's meeting with the chiefs basically is a security thing. The president was worried and probably afraid that the country is going to just light up in flames because there is talk that this is going to be a nationwide protest, and government presidents are always worried about protests, nationwide protests. When people take to the streets to protest and demand for stuff, it can flare into uncontrollable, right? And they were gearing up to really crush this thing, at all costs. But that also can backfire. It can enrage a lot more people, and this can spiral into something we none of us expect, right? So it was very concerning. So they mobilized chiefs to drum into their ears, to go back to their communities and talk to their people, to desist from anything that will destabilize the country. And basically, that was the purpose of the meeting with the chiefs, to basically discourage this protest from going on, and to use the chiefs to have more control um, over the people and prevent any riots or any conflict from going ahead, right? So basically, that's how I see these issues going on, Doctor. Any remarks on this?
Well, I just can't believe every time we have something going on in the Gambia, for what happened, they just change their minds. And so, how will the president even now will be able to assess that we are not serious? I think it's a legit thing to demonstrate in a democratic system. But why are we always postponing stuff? That's all I can say.
Thank you, Doctor. So I think basically um, this group that call themselves the Coalition of Progressive Gambians,
Mm-hmm.
they might be just seeking attention. I don't think they are really, really serious about what they are claiming.
Mm.
I think they are probably just seeking attention. And probably I wouldn't even be surprised if I see some of them later flipping over and joining NPP. And, just like the remnants of the 3 years Jotna people just recently did,
Mm-hmm.
after all that commotion in the Gambia, and when Barrow threw a few of them in jail for some time, they all went silent. And
Mm-hmm.
now some of their key leaders are now they are repackaging themselves into what they call Mandinka warriors and joining Barrow's effort, development effort, they say. So I don't know what Mandinka warrior is. We don't have any Mandinka warriors. I hate these tribal statements. These people are just not serious people. I don't
Mm-hmm.
even know why President Barrow entertains groups like
Yeah, I
this.
know.
We need to focus on more serious things. There are better people who can contribute to the development of our country than these, all these crazy groups that come up with all these funny names, claiming to be something they are not. And Barrow entertains that, because of expectation of cheap political gain. I don't see the logic of it. And so I think some of these uh, coalition of progressive Gambian people may end up doing something similar. I don't think they're really serious about this. They're just looking for a limelight, some kind of cheap publicity. But we will see how this goes on. And I've had some statements that some opposition parties are actually behind this. UDP has often been pointed out for supporting groups like this as proxies to destabilize the country and destabilize Barrow's administration. Dusano particularly gave a speech where he pointed fingers at UDP. They said there are prominent UDP members who are behind this. I don't know who they are, but there are accusations out there that UDP is again, you know, sponsoring or probably backing this new group also, like they have been accused of backing 3 years judgment. So, and people go back to Davos' statement some time ago where he said they will make the Gambia ungovernable for Barrow. And people use that as evidence of UDP's attempt to destabilize our country, make the Barrow administration fail at all costs by supporting groups like this. I don't know how true it is. I have no evidence to refute or support these claims, but there are claims out there, that people are making. So I don't know. I don't really know, but we hope that there are better, peaceful ways to deal with the crisis, the problems of the Gambia. Barrow is quite democratic. Uh, he has he has the temperament, right? Pretty much like Sadauda. He's quite tolerant, right? But I think he needs to listen to real good people to be able to move this country forward. Currently, I don't think he's listening to skilled, smart people. I think he's more listening to uh, so-called political advisors who, um, I don't know if they really understand how government works. How they may have some sense of grassroots politics, but Barrow needs to have economic advisors rather than these political advisors.
Yep.
That is what I think will help him, will give him new, better direction to move our country forward. And that's going to be my last remark on this, Doctor. Like I said, this is a short session. Hopefully, we'll come back here. We just had to change our topics to deal with this poverty issue again. But next week we will deal with something else. Hopefully, I'll bring a small business person next week, and then we'll see how that company is doing in terms of making changes in the Gambian economy. We need more entrepreneurs in the country. We need more people opening up small businesses so they can employ people and provide services and products that the Gambian people need. We need to move away from this import-based economy and towards a production-based economy. Like I said, all economics begins with production, right? And we need to move away from this economy of taking loans and grants and all that stuff. We need to be able to create in our country and satisfy our needs and then export the excess of what we produce. That's how we can strengthen and develop this economy, and so that our Gambian people can be able to live a dignified, progressive lives. And I want to end with that, Dr. Conteh. Unless you have a final word, we're going to shut down this session today. We'll be back next Sunday. Hopefully, we have Collie and some other person with us to help us in our discussion. Dr. Conteh.
I don't have much to say other than to say that let's just keep the faith and what you said about the president not having should have economic advisors, and I encourage him to have that. But also, the president should be willing to listen, and his critics, his supporters or surrogates, should be willing to listen. That when we criticize, we want him to be a better person. But when you criticize, they say that you are anti-NPP or you are against the president's development agenda. And what development agenda they are trying to get? Because you know nothing seems to work. The president said that he's going to fight corruption, so it's been a week. We haven't heard anything about that. So when he says something you're going to do, please move on and do it. And I still support him, but one leg is inside, one leg is outside, because this level of corruption and incompetency, and people willfully denying, you accuse somebody in the Gambia, they say, show me the evidence. Yeah, so yeah, because you are the person who perpetrated or concealed a fraudulent act, and you know where you probably put the money. So I hope he can just listen, because criticizing him eventually will make him look better. But with the new constitutional review that you were talking about, I am kind of skeptical about that constitution, because it's given judges, lifetime payment to, and also the Islamic Council. What I don't understand, is that they don't want the word secular in it, and they claim that Gambia is an Islamic country, which I don't like to bring religion in our discussion. But the president also has not responded to the high failure rate of the WAEC examination. It seems like they just forgotten about those things. The president has not acted on firing Bakari Baji after, benefiting. Do we even know whether Bakari actually returned the money?
I don't
And
think so.
the same thing happened, was attributed to the Minister of Health. So it looks like they can do anything they want and get away with it. And when you criticize them, they say you are anti. So for us, I guess we'll continue to criticize until we retire. When we go home, we just go to our farms and mind our business. If they need us, they'll find us. But to go find them, I don't think so, because this government is not willing to listen. And I may even jump ship when it comes to the local council elections, because I'm not going to support a government that doesn't want to listen,
Right.
because we need competent people in our area. And I also want to add something. I was telling somebody,
Yeah.
because this reflects back to the discrimination years ago when only Banjul and Serakunda people were voting. Why will they call Banjul mayor, KFC mayor, but the rest chairman or chairwoman? I'm totally against it, because I can understand Banjul being mayor, but KMC is not. It's not. It's not. It got pockets of villages or towns somewhere around, all scattered together around everywhere, and they're gonna call mayor. But for our people, because it used to be, people in North Bank could not vote. The only people who could vote, Banjul, Serakunda, Bakau. So are they using the same discrimination against us? It's a thought that we should think about. And also, I wish the president would, or the IEC would register people, because since the last election, I bet at least 50,000 Gambians reach voter age. So why are we not including those people? This is what the opposition, the political party, civil society should be talking about. That we shouldn't have a specific period to have registration.
Right.
Registration should actually be done every single day, if it's left with me.
Right.
So I hope we can do that. So that's all I have to say. But the Gambians, when I look at the Gambian dollar, see, last night when I looked from 55.50
Mhm.
for a $1 to for $1 to be 55.50 Gambian dollars. And then I went online and I checked again. I saw 57. I thought I was black. I was dreaming.
Wow.
57. So which means that before the end of this month,
Probably not.
this young lady who's sending money, probably the rate will go to 59.
Right.
I also want to add something here. Maybe some people can hear me clearly, because I'm very concerned about, and you and I did talk about it, and it needs to be discussed. Uh, Money laundering in the US is a crime.
Right.
And if you also have a business not registered, you are obligated to pay taxes. So do not send money to someone who tells you, can you sell me? If you're gonna send money to anyone, make sure that you ask them for their registration, business registration. Let's stop doing this Gambian thing to say, hey, we are all whatever, and we can just circumvent stuff, because eventually it's gonna come back and haunt you.
Absolutely.
So I don't like, because I got taken advantage of by a Gambian to the tune of $1,300 for a remittance. And up to today, this person has not paid me, and I remember putting money in that person's account. So please, I beg you all, if you're gonna send money, just get the person who is sending money can just take it out from you. I think it's ACH. When you go in there, it tells you
Right.
what method do you want to use. You want to use your debit card, or you want to use ACH, meaning that would you like to have your check number and your routing number.
Right.
I think, because anyone engaging in this fraudulent activity by thinking that you can make money through remittances, but you are not registered, Uncle Sam is gonna IRS is gonna get you.
Right.
Yeah, so we need to say that to let's just stop this Gambian thing. It doesn't work. When you live in a country that has laws, and that can have effect on your employability, it should be something that we should consider. And I, for one, I'm discouraging anyone who asks me, where do I send money? I say, well, I have this place. They may even charge a rate, a fee, but it gives me peace of mind, and my money can be received by my people even before they take the money out of my account, and I feel comfortable doing that. That's all I can say, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Conteh. Thank you very much. Very well said. Yeah, all Gambians should be mindful of that. I have gone through that myself. So it is important that everybody is mindful of where you put your money into, that it is a credible place where nothing is going to come back and haunt you in the future. With that, we're going to end today's session. We'll see you guys again next Sunday. And we want to thank you all for being here with us. Thank you, Dr. Conteh. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you, sir. You take care. Bye-bye.
Okay.